So hello, I'm going to go ahead and get started because 6:30, I know you are tired and I'm in bed by 8, as I was just saying. So I appreciate you willing to take your time out and come and listen to the presentation on the bully prevention that we are doing in Roanoke County Schools. My name is Christy Cundiff and I'm the life counselor at Cave Spring High School. So our presentation is on expect respect. What that means is we in Roanoke County are starting to implement a PBIS program called Positive Behavior Interventions and Supports. So it's a mouthful. But PBIS involves prompting, modeling, practicing, and encouraging positive expected social skills across settings. So overall, our goal is for our campus to be safe for all students, to be respectful and to be responsible. So not only are we teaching that amongst ourselves as adults for consistency, but also our students. And so this presentation speaks a little bit about what that looks like. So positive behavioral interventions and supports. So Expect Respect is an evidence-based bully program. It reduces bullying, and so evidence-based, what that means is it has been implemented in other school systems, and the results have been really positive in that it's decreased bullying. So that is something that is important to us, that we know that what we are doing is working. It's a universal language, and we are doing it from K through 12. So if you have a student that is transferred from one school to the next, the language is the same no matter what Roanoke County school you attend. So we've developed our own stop message. The middle school says, stop, I don't like what you're doing. So if a student comes and you feel disrespected by it as another student, you say, stop, I don't like what we're doing. In the high school, I've had a little bit more difficulty with that in that they want to make it their own. So we practice what that looks like, how to use your voice, how to say what you need to say and still be respectful, but to get the behavior to stop. So that's the first strategy that we use. The other thing that we teach is the difference between what a conflict is and what bullying is. So if you look, bullying is an aggressive and unwanted behavior that's intended to harm, intimidate, and humiliate the person that's being bullied. It involves an imbalance of power between the person that's being bullied and the target, and it is repeated over time or causes severe emotional trauma. It can only happen one time. A conflict is usually within, a lot of times it's a friend system, or maybe you have a bad friend, but you keep trying to hang out with that person, or maybe there's arguing going back and forth where both people are disrespectful to one another. And that's still addressed as well, it's just addressed in a different way. So there may be some interventions by the counseling staff, and they both are something that are addressed, but they're done in two different ways. So one of the things that I've noticed throughout doing this, I've been doing this for a lot of years in a lot of different areas, is a lot of bully programs in the past that I've been involved with do not teach the empathy piece or how to teach each other how to be respectful and the language to be used. And so this program does a really good job in doing so. So we don't just use the word bullying, we talk about how to be respectful. And if you are respectful with one another, it ultimately reduces the bullying incident. So that's another piece of the puzzle that we put in addition to looking at bullying incidents themselves. So the basic idea for disrespect is if you're getting into someone's personal space, physical altercations, infringing on the rights of others, using disparaging language, putting others down, touching others' things, et cetera, et cetera. So we're teaching students how to differentiate between being respectful and what disrespectful behavior looks like. So it could be as simple as staying within your bubble at the elementary level. However, we have some people in the high school that have difficulty staying within their bubble and get touchy-feely with other people, and that has to be also a learned behavior. So there may be consequences that are put into place, but in addition, different behaviors are learned so that people can grow, because they're all children that need a little help one way or the other. Oh, I have my clicker. So students will acquire and use core skills. They'll differentiate, again, between respectful and disrespectful behavior. We're going to have a stop-wide strategy throughout the whole campus, so you'll know. So if someone comes into my office and they say so-and-so was rude, one of the first things that I will say is, did you tell them that you didn't like it? Did you tell them to stop? Now, sometimes the student will say, well, no, and I'll say, well, okay, tell me what's going on. Oftentimes, there's been, well, sometimes it involves a significant other and someone's mad because something happened there, so we get into that. Oftentimes, someone's actually hurt or mad at the other person, and we figure that out and handle that as a conflict. But that is the first thing. And we like to empower students to do that unless they don't feel safe. And that's a question that we always ask. Do you feel safe telling that person to stop? If they don't feel safe, then of course we're going to help and protect them and surround them and do what we need to do. So we're also teaching bystanders, the people around, to say, hey, you know, that's not okay. So creating a culture that respects and cares for one another. So if you see something that makes you feel, oftentimes I'll say, you know, you just don't feel good about it, or it just doesn't sit well. So if you are in that situation as a student and you feel like you can say something in a safe way, please do so. If you don't feel safe about it, please go and see an adult. And so we are also training the faculty that when students come to them, how they need to respond and what they need to do to make sure the students are safe. We also talk to the people that are doing the behaviors. So if a student's really upset or really mad and they're being disrespectful and they don't even realize it, and then they have an opportunity to change their behavior. So one of the things that we say is if someone tells you to stop and you hear the universal language, whatever that is for the school, then you have to take a breath and you have to think, okay, wait. Now oftentimes, if I'm like a normal human, I'm thinking, I haven't done anything wrong. But one of the things that we teach the teens is, or young people, is that it doesn't matter if you don't think you did anything wrong. If the other person perceives that what you did was hurtful or disrespectful, just take a breath and say, you know, okay, no big deal. I'm going to stop and I'm going to walk away. And maybe I need to evaluate later, like why that was an issue for the other person. Or maybe I know right away that it wasn't very nice. And if you can do that, then you have resolved your own problem. You have taken the opportunity to change that behavior. And so we'd like to give people the opportunity to do so, again, if it's a safe environment. If they don't stop, and we tell the student to go and ask for adult help if they don't feel comfortable. So adults are being trained to differentiate as well between respectful and disrespectful behavior, to model respectful and disrespectful behavior, label and interpret the behavior when encountered, and also continue to teach those skills in the classroom. So throughout the day, you know, we as adults see kids all the time acting in respectful and disrespectful ways. So to encourage the respectful behavior and maybe discuss some disrespectful behavior that needs to change and adjust. And also doing that in a respectful way. Does anybody know my word of the day? Thank you. Respectful. Adults will also be taught to help mediate the conflict or get to the mediators in the building that can handle the situation. Collect and use information to continually improve. So we're collecting data as well on the program to make sure that it continues to be used consistently, effectively, and appropriately. So we continue to teach expect strategies, and so what we are doing is going through each of the classrooms. In ninth grade, for example, I've gone through each of the classrooms to talk about the differences between expect and disrespect, respect and disrespect, thank you. And we did a video that I'll be showing at the end of the presentation. So in the high school, the high schoolers at lunch, I was working with them throughout lunch to model respectful and disrespectful behaviors, and the students also participated in the video for me. We will be doing 3 of the videos throughout the school year this year, and anybody that would like their child to be highlighted or famous, let me know, and I'll make sure they're in the next video. I really found like at the high school level, this was a neat way to incorporate the different strategies, because some of the strategies, some of the feedback we got that they could be conceived as elementary, or the high school would not take them seriously. But you'll see in the video that they really do take it seriously. So for another example, just yesterday I had a student come in, and he was a manly man, and he was saying that he felt like he wanted to beat someone up because they weren't being very nice and respectful to him. And I appreciate the fact that he came into my office to tell me that he was planning to beat someone up, because you don't always get that. So that made me think I had a window of opportunity. In doing so, I said, well, I thought, I'm just going to use my strategies. Have you told this person that you didn't like what they were doing? And he said, what? I said, have you told him with your voice that you did not like what he was doing? And he said, Mrs. Cundiff, you're making me sound like a girl right now. And I said, okay, well, I understand what you're saying. He said, but then he stopped me and he said, but how would I do that? What would that sound like coming from me? And I said, well, that's a really good point. You probably wouldn't say it the same way that I would, but let's model and brainstorm ways that you feel comfortable using that, so that you can start changing some of these behaviors, because you're not going to be able to fight your whole life. And when you grow up and get a job, so then that takes us to the world of adulthood and career, and how would that look like? So that was one example of how just using the lingo worked in a way that I didn't necessarily think it might work. So if someone uses the school-wide stop phrase, just a review, you stop what you're doing, even if you don't think you're doing anything wrong. You take a deep breath. You remind yourself, no big deal if I stop now, meaning I'm going to change my behavior so I don't have consequences later. Say okay to the person who asked you to stop, and move on. So the more that we do this, the more that students will be able to kind of be triggered of, okay, I can do this, and I'm going to stop and move on. It's definitely a learned behavior, because a lot of times students just do what they know or what has worked for them in the past, or what family members may have said. And I have raised 4 children as well, and I will tell you, I have not always been in counseling mode when I'm in mama bear mode, so I may have not always given the correct direction. And so this just helps everyone learn that we're in this together, we're on the same page, and we're supporting one another. So the next video will be the bystander video, and if you see someone using the stop strategy and the student doesn't stop, each of the students will be trained to use the strategy towards the student if they feel comfortable. Ask the recipient to go with you and leave the area, so we're supporting one another, and comfort the recipient, the person that is feeling that, later by saying something like, I'm sorry that didn't happen, I'm sorry that happened, that wasn't fair, or again, whatever language is most comfortable for them. So then if you need to use this strategy, it's another one that we will be talking about. So decide whether to ignore it or seek support. So as an adult, I don't tell students to ignore anything, because sometimes I get upset and I can't ignore it. So I really try to get them to understand what it means to ignore. To ignore means if I can walk away from it and then within an hour or two, I can kind of decompress and I'm okay. However, if 2 or 3 days go by and it's still just harping on me and stuck to me and I can't get past it, then even though I'm not using my voice to say anything, does that mean I can ignore it? No. And so that's something that I like to make perfectly clear. So to ignore doesn't mean to not communicate. It means if you can just brush it off, no big deal. If you can't, then seek support. If you seek support, definitely feel free, we say, to talk to your parents. We want parents to communicate with us as well. And if anyone involved can talk to a school adult, that seems to be really helpful, because oftentimes we have the ability to make sure that it is taken care of and things stop. So another example, my child, and my kids are all okay now, but I have a lot of kid examples. I have a student at Tech, but when he was in 5th grade, He was bullied, and I felt like I had a really good opportunity to help walk him through it. But the reality of it is I was a parent in that role, and I wasn't in his elementary school, and I didn't have the skills that I needed to be able to help him. I needed someone on the inside to make sure that he was safe in the school day and everything was okay. So some of the things that we run into is maybe the behaviors have been happening for a while, but when they get to us, sometimes it's like the first incident, because maybe this has been happening for 3 months. And then a student gets to me, and I use that strategy of, oh gosh, I can't believe this is going on. Have you told them to stop? Well, no, I've told this person, this person, this person. So then we might be in square one, depending on where they are in the process. And it seems like it's a slow process, but yet we are just now kind of getting on the same page. So sometimes that's a disconnect. So always have communication with your school. If the adult doesn't have time to help solve the problem right then, ask the adult when they would have time and make an appointment. So one of the things that we find too is maybe a student will say, hey, can I talk to you? And the adult doesn't realize the importance of the situation and says, yeah, come see me later, and then they never come back. Or oftentimes if I have a student, I'll say, okay, this is our plan. Do you feel comfortable with the plan? The student says, yes, I'm good, I feel good. Okay, so we're a team now. So if what I'm doing doesn't work, we're going to go to the next step. So you've got to tell me if it works or not. Okay, so the student leaves, and it's all great. The next week, I think I'm the best counselor in the whole world because I never hear back from the student, and it's all good, and it's all been settled. Well, that might not always be the case. That sometimes that student will tell me, 3 weeks later, oh yeah, by the way, it didn't stop. Well, what? You were supposed to tell me in 2 days. So just reinforcing that communication as a team. So how parents can support their child. Create space and opportunity for open communication with your child. Oftentimes as parents, we know it kind of happens right when you're exhausted and they're supposed to be in bed. That's a great time for them to just want to open up. Watch for warning signs that the student may be struggling. So if you notice some behavior changes, certainly give us a call if you feel like it might be school related, but definitely ask them, hey, what's up? I've noticed this. How are you feeling? Anytime you can incorporate feelings, like I noticed that you're sad, or I noticed that you're angry, instead of what's wrong with you, because then you'll get a response, and your response is universal. What will your response be? That's right, nothing. Help your student understand the difference between conflict and bullying. So that's something that we can constantly do. And sometimes if I have a student in my office, we'll figure that out together. If it goes to where you're seeking an adult, oftentimes we'll have a team, and we'll be able to look at the different pieces of the puzzle to see if there's a conflict or if it's bully behavior. Remember, bullying, if someone is intentionally trying to harm another person, the person they're trying to harm has not done anything to them, and the person they are trying to harm has asked them to stop, but they do it anyway. So it's intentional and it's purposeful. Share with the student that bullying is not their fault, and share that the student has the right to be safe and feel safe. Develop a plan with your student. Sometimes one of the feedback that I get from students is, well, I didn't tell you because I thought it would get worse. And sometimes people have had experiences where things maybe didn't work out. So one of the things that's really important is that we work with the student to make them feel safe, and to know that it won't get worse, because there's a plan in place, not just in our offices, but systematically throughout the whole school. Contact the school if you need to report bullying behavior and your child needs support from school staff. I've also had students come into my office since this has been presented and said, I may be a bully. So that's been really, I think it's neat, but I don't know, there might be a better word. But that's been an eye-opener as well, because they're realizing that they may be angry or frustrated or triggered by another student. They don't necessarily want to act that way, and they're realizing that it's not respectful behavior and it's not okay. So then we work to adjust and tweak that behavior as well. Help your child brainstorm appropriate responses. So remember, when you brainstorm appropriate responses, you always want the response to be respectful. I don't know, you don't want it to, be bad. This would include positive pro-social behavior using a firm voice and eye contact and telling the person to stop, I don't like what you're doing. This would not include harming or retaliating against the student with the bully behavior. So I often say, how can you stand up and use your voice in a way that still makes you look good? Because if you can stand up and use your voice in a way that still makes you look good and respectful, then it's only going to make the adult's situation easier, because it's much easier to identify than if you equal the other person's disrespect. Then it just becomes two people being disrespectful to one another. That makes it a lot more difficult. Avoid taking the situation into your own hands. It's a normal gut reaction, but try to empower your student to use the strategies and develop appropriate responses. And that's even hard for me on campus, too. Sometimes I want to take the situation into my own hands, and they have better ideas than I do at times, and it makes a lot more sense. And so I have to take a deep breath and calm myself down. Remind your student about the expect, respect strategies, including the seeking support strategy. Who is someone who could support them at school? And do not be afraid that it will become worse by reporting it. I added that in there because that's something that comes to me a lot. Even if it's a teacher, a lot of students have great relationships with their teachers. We have some amazing teachers. And so if they feel comfortable talking to a teacher about it, any adult at school. So what happens next? So when an incident is reported of possible bullying, the bully point of contact, I am Christy Cundiff, the bully point of contact at Cave Spring High School. Mr. Tim Hayes is the bully point of contact at Cave Spring Middle School. So, and you can also let another admin or adult know. But we get together, we'll evaluate the situation to determine whether it's a conflict or bully incident. The recipient is interviewed, the possible perpetrator is interviewed, and there may be witnesses interviewed. Parents will be contacted to determine what was decided and how to move forward. Often it's a conflict, and the counseling staff will work with both students when needed to empower or to teach ways to use your voice in order to be heard and still be respectful by others. So I see two things in these situations. One, a person does not know necessarily how to handle social skills or maybe their own frustrations or anger, so that's something that needs to be addressed. And then sometimes the other thing that needs to be addressed is how to use your voice, how to ask for help, sometimes it's even how to love who you are and how to be confident in who you are. So a lot of different things come out of situations that are reported. But when it is determined it's a bully situation, consequences are given by administration, and they take that piece of it. The incident is documented to make sure that it doesn't happen again. The perpetrator works with the counseling staff in order to understand emotions and works on respecting yourself and others. Okay. So we are implementing the program this year. So counselors, we were trained by central office in spring of last year. Administrators were trained over the summer. And we did a faculty training and a bus driver training this past August. The bus drivers Tim and I did the bus training, and they did a really great job and had a lot of good things to say. That was neat. And then we established a bully report contact, and that should now be on every school's website. And then all students are continuing to be trained in the stop, walk, talk model by counselors using the stop message and stopping and supporting strategies. The bracelets that you have, the 9th grade has not yet gotten the bracelets yet, because when I went into 9th grade, I had not yet gotten them, so they'll be getting them on the second round, but I brought bracelets for you all if you would like them. They say expect respect. I usually wear mine every day now because I feel like now I expect respect no matter where I go. It's a nice reminder. So you're welcome to leave with one of those. And so just to give you an idea of what, I'll show you the video in just a second. The other thing that we have, this is new to us as well. If you need to report a bullying incident or have anything that you want to report, we have a Speak Up app through Roanoke County now. And that is, the information is on each of the websites, and there are posters in the school buildings as well. There's one right over there. And what that does is the information goes directly to central office, and then it's filtered out through there wherever it needs to go. So we have had students utilize that when they feel like they want to report something and they haven't felt comfortable reporting it in other ways. It's just another opportunity to do so. Yes?
So what happens when they text that number?
That's a really good question. So would you, because you all have, okay, what happens, Ms. Hill, when they text that number?
Basically, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. Basically, the company that operates the system notifies central office administration, and central office administration notifies Steve Spangler for Cave Spring High School, Fiona Hill for Cave Spring Middle School, and we take care of it from that point.
Okay.
So if the child isn't given enough information though to know where they're from or whatever, they text back and forth with them to get that information? Or?
Usually the student's name is right there because they're using, a system where the student is identified immediately, and the student will usually write a message. And oftentimes it is not actually about themselves, but they maybe want to say, I'm worried about so-and-so, could you look into this? And so we automatically follow up. It's a great system.
And from my understanding, it's a system that we contract with a company, so it's constantly monitored, which was a question I had. You can get my contacts from the Cave Spring High School site under the counselor, and Mr. Hayes as well as Cave Spring Middle under the counseling section. And so let me show you really quickly the Cave Spring High School video.
Sharing how we feel and respecting their point of view and opinions.
Treat people the way you want to be treated.
Respect their personal space and respect their opinions and stuff.
How are you doing? You doing well?
No bullying allowed.
Because they're either insecure about things or maybe they have things going on at home and they don't know how to properly convey those emotions, so they take it out on others by being rude.
A lot of times they do it to bring themselves up. They have low self-esteem.
To make themselves feel better.
People have a false sense of popularity, so some people think it's cool to be disrespectful to people that aren't as cool in a way.
Just tell somebody.
Tell that person to stop. If they don't continue to stop, then walk away. If they continue to follow you, then tell an adult.
Find an adult you can trust.
Ew, oh my gosh, what are you wearing? Ew.
Bro, that's pretty bad. That's pretty mean, man. I don't know.
I told this person to stop sending me these racist things about me. Everything that I keep getting from this is making me really sad about myself. I don't know what to do.
We're doing something here at Cave Spring High School that deals with respect. Every student needs to be treated with respect. If a student feels like they're not being respected, then we have a universal sign that basically says stop. Whether you are playing or not, it needs to stop.
Step 1. Stop what you are doing, even if you think you aren't doing anything wrong.
Step 2, remind yourself, no big deal if I stop now. Step 3, say okay to the person who asked you to stop and move on with your day.
It's important that if you witness bullying, that there are a few things you say to the perpetrator. This is the bystander strategy. Number 1, go to the perpetrator and tell them to stop as well. Number 2, ask the recipient to come with you and leave the area. Be a comfort to the recipient. Number 3, comfort the recipient. It's hard to go through something like that and they need our support. These are ways that we can help with bullying and put a stop to it.
Here are some steps to follow if you ask somebody to stop, but they don't. First, decide whether it's something you can just shrug off or if you need to seek additional help. If you decide you do want to talk about it, then choose a trusted school adult to. If they're busy, don't give up. Come back, make an appointment. I'm sure they'll be happy to talk to you.
Could you please stop?
Come on, guys.
Bro,
Come on, man.
you see that stuff he sent you, bro?
Really, man?
Bro, let's go to the school counselor, man. We gotta get help. We're being bullied.
This school counselor?
Yes.
That's what he said.
Oh wow, let's go to my office and we'll figure this out.
We don't listen to him. You're a great person and you can come hang out with us today.
Oh, for real? Yeah. All right. Thanks, dog. All right, let's go.
So we get it. You're going to have conflict, and that's just part of life. Bullying's a little bit different. Bullying's when you intentionally harm someone, you know that they want you to stop, and you continue to do it. If that's you, and you feel like it's fun or it's funny, then you need to ask for help as well. That's not okay.
Today we have made a commitment to using a school-wide stop phrase. Remember, if someone asks you to stop, the rule is you stop.
So that is a link on our website as well for Cave Spring High School. They came up with the themes that they wanted to do the skits around, and Victoria, who was the editor, kicked a lot of the adults out of the video, so they actually didn't make the cut because she felt like it was more appropriate to have students learning from other students. So I really value what they have to teach us and how we can work with them to make the campus safer for everybody.